Alrighty boys, welcome back once again to another video. How you guys doing? Guys, today I'm going to be doing a everything you need to know type video for the Mythic Storm King. Yesterday I put out a video on my first completion of it with Death Grip, Ortho, and Rounded Tic Tac, and you guys got that video to around 50,000 views in less than 24 hours. So I wanted to make a guide for you guys to try to highlight as much information as possible to help you guys be able to defeat the Mythic Storm King and be able to earn some of the mythic weapons yourself. So I have this kind of split up into a few different categories. I have before you begin the fight, I have the weapons you need to use, I have the loadouts, and some miscellaneous tips that you're going to need to know during the fight. So first off, we're going to begin with before you fight. So there's 3 different tips here. Before you begin the fight with the Mythic Storm King, you must be power level 122 and have completed the quest line that requires killing 2 power level 140 mini bosses in power level 140 missions. What I do recommend here is that although you have to be power level 122 to run the fight, I recommend being around 125 to 127 before you actually do fight the Storm King. The next tip for this is that you must have a team together. You cannot run this with randoms unless every single person you're running with knows exactly what they're doing, as communication is key. You can find teams either on Twitch, Reddit, or Discord. There are plenty means of ways of getting to other players that really want to run this activity together. There's plenty of different ways that you can do it, so do not give up. And the last tip that I have is that you must come to terms that this fight is more difficult than anything else in the game. Just because it's hard doesn't mean it should be nerfed, and it doesn't mean that it's impossible. This is definitely possible, not just by content creators, not just by streamers, but by any of you guys that are watching this. This is a really possible fight. It is not the most difficult thing in the world, but it is the most difficult thing in the game. So you got to come to terms with that before you begin. As for me, it took me upwards of 5 hours to get my first completion. So this will take up a lot of your time. So segueing on over to that, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the weapons that you're going to be using for this fight. Alright, so whenever it comes to the Mythic Storm King, you are going to need a very specific set of weapons if you want to make this as easy as possible. You don't necessarily need these weapons, but if you want to make this really easy and as easy as it could possibly be, you are going to want to have these. So whether or not you can craft them yourself, you can either craft them yourself or you can get them from your other teammates or people that you know so that you can use them during this fight. So I have these up into a few different categories. First off, we're going to start off with the mini boss damage and killing other enemies. So there's really 2 options that you have here. There are of course other things that you can do, but if you're looking to make this super easy, there's 2 different options. First off, the deatomizer. This should be your go-to rocket launcher if you are trying to get that mini boss damage. During the fight, there will be a mini boss that you have to kill in order to continue the fight. I will elaborate more on that in a minute, but if you guys do want to kill this guy, use the deatomizer. My rolls are durability, double crit damage, and crit rating, as this weapon will help you kill the mini boss and any enemies around it at the same time. The deatomizer will absolutely destroy the mini boss, especially if you have your other 3 teammates using it as well, and any kind of other enemies that are in the arena are a thing of the past, as this will mop them up very quickly. Now, if you're trying to use another weapon and you don't have the deatomizer, then maybe use the V6 launcher. This weapon was touted as being absolutely horrible whenever it first came out, as it had terrible durability. Well, with the most recent patch, the V6 launcher is one of the better rocket launchers in the game. It has a crit rating, double crit damage, damage to afflicted, and causes affliction. A very, very good choice if you are trying to mop up these enemies. I would recommend the V6 launcher as a second go, maybe the cannonade as your third option, but the cannonade isn't meant for single target damage. It is simply meant just for killing enemies that are in the arena. Wouldn't really recommend the cannonade. Go with the deatomizer or go with the V6 launcher. Now next up, I have crystal damage. You have a few different options here. For me personally, for crystal damage, I used the bundle bus. You have a crit rating, double crit damage, and a reload speed. One thing I do want to point out is that everything in this arena will be physical. If you are trying to get the most damage possible, make sure that all of your weapons are physical when they can be. Mine was energy, but that's definitely something you want to look into. Make these weapons physical. This is the bundle bus that I used for destroying the crystals. I would have 2 bundle buses, as I would use the first one and then swap to the second one to do crystal damage. Next up, we have the Spyglass as an option. The Spyglass is basically an old Betsy with a scope on it, so you're not going to miss out on any damage based on how far away the crystal or the enemy is. These are the rolls on my Spyglass. Next up, you can use the old Betsy. Again, Again, this is just a Spyglass without a scope, and it has a little bit less range, but given the kind of circumstances of the fight, you'll be just fine. Make sure that this is physical, and this is the rolls you want to go with on your old Betsy. Lastly, for crystal damage, there is only one other weapon that you can use, and that would be the Obliterator. These are the rolls that I would go with on it. This is one of the best snipers in the game. I definitely wouldn't use this over the old Betsy, but it's definitely a really good option if you would like to use another sniper rifle. Now, if we go to the last section on the type of weapons that you want to use, these are going to come down to the horn damaging weapons, the weapons that you want to use to damage the horn itself. Now, there's only two things that I have here, and that is the surround pound and the wicked wind. The surround pound will be the better of the two melee options. It will come with a crit rating, double crit damage, attack speed, and physical, and this is the main weapon that you want to use for that horn. Now, your other option is the wicked wind, and that is the melee weapon that came with the medieval set. The only issue with the wicked wind, and I actually think I dismantled it, pretty much the same rolls as a surround pound if you're able to. The problem with the wicked wind, and I might have a power level 20 version somewhere down here, is that some of the hits will not register when using this weapon, and that's something that Chetik himself noticed, and he was the world's first, is that the wicked wind will not register all of its hits. So if you want to go with consistency and you want to do the best damage as possible, as consistent as possible, I would recommend going with the surround pound. Now lastly, whenever it comes to the weapons, I actually have one trap that you are going to need. You cannot skip out on this trap if you want to beat the Storm King. The trap that I'm talking about, of course, is the cozy campfire. These are absolutely essential if you want to win your fight with the Storm King. Healing is something that you will need as much as possible, as everything in this arena will damage you. You will take tons of damage from the meteors from the sky, from the Storm King himself, from the different, enemies that are there, the mini boss. There will be many ways for you to take damage, even the water itself. So use these cozy campfires as a means of healing yourself outside of adrenaline rush. Use durability, reload speed, durability, healing amount, durability. You want to have as much durability as possible. A fun fact about these cozy campfires is that if you leave one on one of the islands in the arena, whenever the Storm King does his burst and he destroys everything in the arena, the campfires will stay on the ground. Make sure you have these. If you don't, you will fail. So that is the last of the weapons that you should be using and the one trap that you should be using in the Mythic Storm King fight. Let's go and segue on over to the loadouts that I recommend, as I only have two that I'd recommend to use. So here we are at the loadouts. Now there's only two that I recommend, one of which is a ninja, one of which is a soldier. So whenever we did our own completion, we had 4 Lynx Cassandras, and this is the main hero that I'd recommend, as you cannot go wrong with her. Her main ability is that whenever you use Kunai Storm, you will hover in the air for 4 seconds. When you do this, you get a flat 140% damage increase to any form of damage. So using your bundle bus in midair, using your Spyglass, deatomizer, anything like that will get a huge damage buff. Lynx Cassandra is the best for this. You want to go with Blast from the Past, Saurian Hide, and Saurian Might. Do not worry about getting stuff like coconuts or getting something like Survivalist, as campfires are what's going to keep you alive. Go with Assault crit damage if you're using the bundle bus. Go with Sniper Rifle crit damage if you're using the Spyglass, Old Betsy, or Obliterator. Hardware crit rating is fantastic for whenever you're using the surround pound on those horns. You want to try to get as much consistent crits as possible, and using hardware crit rating will help you there. Bomb suit is the last thing that I recommend, as this will increase your armor and keep you from dying. Whenever it comes to the gadgets, there's only 2 gadgets that I recommend, as I feel as though Slow Field is a little too inconsistent with its use. Go with Adrenaline Rush and Stationary Hover Turrets. Adrenaline Rush is only to be used when healing your teammates or trying to get yourself out of a very tough situation, but mainly for your teammates. Stationary Hover Turret will be used for any of the additional enemies that are there, and even for the mini boss if you're trying to kill it in a crunch. So lastly, we have the other loadout that I recommend, and I only recommend that one person runs this loadout. No 2 people should be playing a soldier. Everyone else should be a ninja, as they're given mobility, and the amount of damage that they can do is just unmatched, really. So the only other soldier I recommend would be Special Forces Banshee. What she does is that her war cry will give you 25.5% additional weapon damage and 25.5% movement speed. This is fantastic for the horn damage phase. Do not use this war cry unless you absolutely have to outside of doing damage to the horn. My recommendations here are Blast from the Past, Sorry and Hide, Sorry and Might. Use Leadership so you can get your war cry more often, just in case you accidentally use it or you have to. Hardware crit rating for that horn damage. And for Special Forces Banshee, I don't recommend that you use the bundle bus. I do instead recommend that you use sniper rifles, so I have Sure Shot right here. Lastly, we have Adrenaline Rush, and this should actually be stationary hover turret if you do want to use this loadout. So lastly for the video, I have some miscellaneous tips for you guys to go over the actual fight. So let's go ahead and kind of show some gameplay of that and talk about these tips that are going to help you actually defeat the Mythic Storm King. So there's an array of things to take in here, and they're kind of all at random, so kind of try to absorb what you can here. My first number one thing is that when a mini boss spawns, the storm will slowly close until it's killed. After it's dead, the storm will move back out. If you guys do not kill the mini boss that spawns, and all of you do not focus it, you will die. You cannot ignore this mini boss. The water will damage you. Stick to the air or on an island. This is what comes into play where you need to build up and stay off of the ground. This will keep many of the enemies away from you, and this will also keep you from taking damage from the water. And there are two ways that you can build up. You can use an arch and then build a floor based off of that if you're playing a ninja. If you are playing a soldier, build an arch, put a cone at the bottom, and jump off of the cone to build the top part for you. That is the only two ways that you can do this, as you cannot let any sort of husk allow its way on top of the platform, because it will have to break its way and path its way to get up there. That is something you don't want to do, as it can distract the mini boss. The next tip I have is that every 5 crystals that you break will allow for a horn damage phase. Basically what you want to do here is you want to break 4 crystals. After you break 4 crystals, you want to have every single person on your team swap to their melee weapon. So if you're running a double bundle bus and a deatomizer, for example, use 1 bundle bus, 1 surround pound, and 1 deatomizer. After that 4th crystal is broken, and after everyone swaps to their melee weapons, kill the mini boss first before going after the 5th crystal. After you kill the mini boss first, go to the 5th crystal as fast as possible, kill it, and then do damage to the horn. Now this is where the next tip comes in. If you do not destroy the horn in one go, your entire team will die. This is why it is such an important thing to have either war cry or be able to use the ear splitter, as you can use the ear splitter's heavy attack to buff your entire team. If you aren't using a soldier, this is what we use during our completion of the Mythic Storm King. You have to get this horn in one go or your entire team will die, whether it's the first or the second one. The next tip is that the encounter is 10 minutes long. If you go past that, you will die instantly. The Storm King will kill you by shrinking in the storm, so if you do not kill him in 10 minutes, you are doomed. Lastly, the only other tip I really have is, kind of going back to campfires. Place them on the floor, as they will stay unbroken unless they are broken by meteors. The Storm King will have an attack where he causes a burst to go out through the entire arena, and it will break everything except for any floor tiles that are placed directly on top of an island. Place your campfire specifically here if you want to keep your source of healing. Let's get it. Let's go, dude.
Hell yeah.
Finally.
Hell yeah.
Oh,
Damn.
the Storm King
Hell
cash,
yeah.
boys.
Hell yeah, dude. The
Got the
Mythic
heartbeat going
Storm
there,
King
fella.
cash.
Whoa.
Let's go, guys. GG.
God damn.
Hell yeah.
And aside from that, guys, that is pretty much it for my tips and tricks on the Mythic Storm King. I try to get as much information as humanly possible in this video, and kind of used everything that I learned from running the Mythic Storm King for literally 5 hours to hopefully help you guys be able to get this completion. The Mythic Storm King is a very possible activity, although it's very difficult, and if you use the tips in this video, I can guarantee that you will get your win eventually. This isn't impossible by any means. All it takes is a little bit of practice and a little bit of knowledge on what's going on, and you will indeed get yourself one of the 5 mythic weapons. Guys, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I greatly do appreciate it, and I hope that this video was very helpful to you. I very rarely come out with tips and tricks videos, but I do feel as though my knowledge can be used by you guys whenever it comes to the Mythic Storm King, as I have learned a thing or two in my hours of play. I hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure to leave a like on the video if you did like it. Subscribe if you're new. Make videos like this almost every single day, and I'll see you guys next time.